As a young man, my three favourite things in life were basketball, professional wrestling and combat racing games. While in my lifetime I doubt I'll ever see all three of those things combined into one video game, in 1999 at least two of those came together in one of the N64's most unusual racing games. Monster Truck Madness 64, developed by Edge of Reality and co-published by Microsoft and Rockstar in 1999 on the N64, is a high-octane monster truck racing game featuring an array of weapons and a whole ton of WCW-themed monster trucks. For old-school PC gamers, you'll no doubt know that Monster Truck Madness as a series started in development in 1995 as a DOS game called Metal Crush. When Microsoft saw what the studio was doing, they pumped money into the game, which allowed them to get real trucks licensed. Microsoft were adamant that the game needed to run in a 32-bit environment, and so the game was ported with more trucks, more courses, and rebranded as Monster Truck Madness when it hit shelves in 1996. Being a hit on PCs for its time, no surprises that they wanted a sequel. Monster Truck Madness 2 promised improved graphics, updated controls, and variable weather conditions, and pretty much everything you would expect the developer to say in a press release for a sequel. The PC game landed in 1998, but a console fan would need to wait for another year for Monster Truck Madness 64, which is the console version of Monster Truck Madness 2. In essence, the game is a point-to-point monster truck racer with power-ups. It features 20 of the most well-known monster trucks worldwide ever made, 10 tracks with multiple routes and courses, and play-by-play commentary with realistic physics models. But does all this boil down to a great game? Well, personally, this is one of the trickier racing games to review on the console. In exhibition and circuit mode, you race your way through checkpoints while trying to do all you can to take out your opponents. My biggest problem with the game is just how it actually plays. Whilst the power-ups and weapons make this often want to be an arcade style affair, the realistic physics make it actually handle more like a simulation. It never seems to go all out as either a simulation or an arcade game, and so often leaves you wondering just exactly how the studio wanted you to play this game. Graphically, I think the game really excels. The truck models are superb, and you'll love looking at each of the different trucks. My personal favourites, no surprises, are the wrestling themed trucks. Seeing a huge monster truck based around the NWO, Sting, Bret Hart, Hollywood Hulk Hogan and the such were a real treat and unexpected in this type of game. They're all highly detailed and animate well, and small details like seeing true reflections on them and smaller details like seeing the wheels move as you traverse the terrain is quite impressive. The actual courses themselves are also a nice mix. They tend to stick to the tried and tested grounds such as forests, deserts and mountains and so on, but they each have their own environmental challenges. As you progress to the later courses, the terrain becomes much tougher, and the gentle turns are a thing of the past, and you will instead be greeted with hairpin turns, rivers to speed through, and steep hills and mountains to climb. An annoyance with the courses though are the obstacles that cover them. In the earlier courses, trees, fences and rocks are genuine obstacles, and clipping or even hitting them will stop you dead in your tracks. On the later courses, however, you'll come across many objects which you can pass through as if they were not even there. It leaves the game feeling half finished, and takes away all of the skill which the first half of the game forces you to learn. In a nice touch, the game has many different weather conditions which genuinely change the way that you tackle each course. The straightforward daytime and evening settings are fairly standard, but the fog and snow courses can leave you tearing your hair out with just how challenging they make the game. The nighttime and pitch black courses are at the insane end of the spectrum, and it makes the game nearly impossible to play. You'll be relying solely on the other cars ahead of you to light the way, but it does help to show off the game's great lighting engine somewhat. The game's audio is also quite acceptable. Army Armstrong, who I'm reliably informed was the voice of Monster Truck Racing at the time, gives some play-by-play commentary. This often boils down to little more than throwing out some one-liners during the action, but it never becomes annoying or overpowering, and it adds to the experience, especially if you hit a high jump and he goes off on one. The remaining in-game music is the expected 90s guitar rock riffs, and so does little to enhance or detract from the actual gameplay. The most challenging aspect of the game is its controls. With the developers stating that true-to-life physics were a big part of the game, Anyone expecting a straightforward racing experience will sadly have been disappointed. This is not a game which you can pick up and instantly get to grips with. Whilst each of the games, many monster trucks handle completely differently, they are all tricky to learn. A slight brush of the analog stick sees your truck make sharp turns, and even trying to keep your truck moving in a straight line can prove very difficult. In the first few courses this isn't so much of a problem, as you have wide paths to follow, but on the later courses where it's easy to fall off the edge of a mountain, it makes for a much more frustrating experience. Add to this some aggressive opponents and it becomes quite a common occurrence to be blasted off course and then finding yourself needing to spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to retrace your movements to get back on track. With many of the required checkpoints in hard to reach locations, you'll find that many times a slight crash or nudge from an opponent can require you to restart the race to have any chance of winning the race and progressing on to the next course. The developers though, they did try to lighten up the gameplay with some very arcade themed additional modes. The soccer and hockey modes are similar to those found in Buck Bumble, where you'll need to use your truck to push the ball into a goal to score points. Nothing too thrilling, and after a few plays you'll be unlikely to go back to it. There is also however though the Summit Rumble mode, where you have a platform to land on and then must remain on there for as long as possible to score points while the opponents are trying to knock you off. This is more fun than the sports bonus modes, but even with other friends this isn't going to be your next multiplayer all-nighter. Monster Truck Madness is a game which takes time to learn, patience to master, and only really delivers in a single player experience. Those looking for an arcade or simulation racer will be disappointed, but if you put the time into getting good with the game's fiddly controls, it's a game which gives you great satisfaction when you finally complete it, if you can forgive some of the game's basic flaws. This is a game which you hear very few people talk about, even more surprising by the fact that Rockstar and Microsoft published it on the N64, and so I'd love to know which Microsoft or Rockstar games you would have loved to have been ported to the N64 back in the day. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and until next time.